Good evening. Welcome to the Raymond Select Board meeting for Tuesday night, the 14th of October, 2014. Lonnie Taylor had a scheduling conflict and is unable to make it this evening, so there'll be just the four of us. Can I have a motion for unanimous consent for anybody from out of town to be able to speak?
Second.
All those in favor? Thank you. First item of business, the September 2nd minutes, 2014. That was our last full, regularly scheduled meeting.
Make a motion to approve the minutes of September 2nd. Second.
I know that there were some suggestions and corrections passed around when it first came out. Are there any additional ones for this meeting? Seeing none, all those in favor? Unanimous, Sue? Next item is the minutes from the Board of Selectmen's meeting from September 16th, 2014. This was the meeting where we set the mill rate for the year.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Any suggestions, corrections, deletions? Seeing none, all those in favor? Unanimous? Our first public hearing this evening, of which we have three, is a housekeeping type of one. It's for our general assistance ordinance annual updates and approvals. For those of you who saw the meeting in August, we did a supplemental approval change in August. So I'd like to open the public hearing for MMA suggested general assistance ordinance. Don, do you want to give us a highlight?
Well, the highlight is under Maine law, the town has to establish maximums of assistance for folks who are in dire need of assistance with basic necessities and so forth. And so to keep us compliant with Maine law, Title 22 MRSA, subsection 4305, we need to adopt an ordinance each year. And so the town has relied on the Maine Municipal Association to do the surveying and the legwork to determine what those GA maximums ought to be by county, and have given us a convenient ordinance and forms that we can so certify after public hearing, and then we submit that to the Maine Department of Human Services, which makes the process, I think, clearly easier for town staff. And I believe the Maine Municipal Association, as they've done this for many years, are very accurate in establishing these levels. So it results in a level of assistance that enables us to help those in need to get those basic necessities, and to this is done by county, of course, and so things are more expensive, say, in Cumberland County than in Washington County. So this is what it's about, setting those maximums for things like housing and food and fuel and whatnot.
For those folks down back, there are seats up front. We don't bite if you want to come sit.
So staff is recommending the adoption of the Maine Municipal Association model ordinance, which will be approved by DHS.
Okay, for anybody who needs all the details, it was put out in our packet last Friday. If there's anybody that'd like to speak to the general assistance ordinance update. Anybody from the board? Motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor? Can I have a motion from the board?
Make a motion to adopt the MMA General Assistance Ordinance Guidelines.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor? Unanimous, Sue?
Do we have an adoption form?
It should be with the packet.
Our second public hearing this evening is for La Mexican restaurant on Route 302. Are the Santos Rogers here? At least. Are you Ben?
Yes. Give him your one.
each year, we have to have a renewal process for restaurant liquor licenses. Fire Inspector David Maines performed the requested life safety fire protection ordinance inspection on October 9th, 2014. Mr. Maines recommends this liquor license for approval. No complaints have been lodged with the town against A La Mexicana regarding their operations. Ben, anything you'd like to say before I open it up to the public?
No, we're just happy to be in such a great community and really appreciate all the patronage that everyone here and the vacationers that come in the summer have given us.
Anybody like to speak on behalf of or against this liquor license request? Anybody from the board? I have a motion to close the public hearing, please.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor? Thank you.
Thanks.
Can I have a motion?
Make a motion to approve the liquor license for A La Mexicana Restaurant.
Second.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? 4, unanimous. Thank you, Ben.
Thank
Good
you.
luck. I'm sorry it took so long for us to get through that this evening. We're passing along signatures here while I pause.
Thank you.
All right, thank you for your patience. Our next public hearing is on the special town meeting and referendum question that will be in the ballot box on November 4th. This has to do with the citizen-initiated petition that was circulated starting in January 2014 regarding withdrawing from RSU 14, our school district. The petition was submitted this past June with 352 valid signatures. In accordance with Title 20 MRSA subsection 1466, a public hearing must be held before the special town meeting to allow comment on the above question. For anybody who saw the attached to our e-packet, there's a lot of background information there about this. But I would like to start the public hearing by reading how the question will be worded in the ballot box on November 4th. It says, quote, "Do you favor filing a petition for withdrawal with the Board of Directors of RSU 14 and with the Commissioner of Education, authorizing the withdrawal committee to expend $25,000 and authorizing the Raymond Board of Selectmen to issue notes in the name of the town of Raymond or otherwise pledge the credit of the town of Raymond in the amount not to exceed $25,000 for this purpose." At our meeting in September, we did vote to send this to the ballot box. And the $25,000 does not need to be borrowed. It would come out of Selectmen contingency. And as was explained at that time, it's an amount up to 25, and it's to help us pay for any investigative costs to looking into this question. This question does not mean that we are withdrawing from the RSU. It basically just authorizes the town to start the research project, which would allow us to make decisions with real numbers. This is step 4, I believe, of a 22-step process. That process was outlined in the packet that we have here. And a lot of those 22 steps also have A, B, and C's to them. So I did want to put that out for now, just for those folks who are here, that's the question I've received the most in the last month, is if we vote for this in November, we're done. And that's not the case. This is to help us investigate. One of the other things we found out when we looked into this was that we, as a select board, had no choice but to bring this forth in either a special town meeting, referendum type. I did not know that at the September 2nd meeting, although that's what we ended up doing. Had we not sent it forth in November, we would have had to do so at some point in time based on state law. So, as I think Joe pointed out, maybe we rushed into this a little bit, but my feeling at the time was that I wanted this to be in the ballot box during a large election cycle as opposed to a small election cycle. The difference in our town for the November election cycle is probably well over 2,000 voters, could be as many as 2,500, as compared to a municipal election with, right now, what we see as almost no controversial items that would be up for a different type of referendum in June, in which we could expect probably 400 voters. So that is why, I felt we should push this along at this point rather than wait till June. So with that said, Teresa brought the petition to us. Teresa, would you like to do an outline, or do you want to just open it up to questions? How would you like to move forward?
Well, it's a public hearing.
This public hearing. I didn't know if Teresa wanted to, anything new to add.
I did. I just want to add something to it. I have been talking a lot with Paula Graville from the Department of Education. She's the one that has done the rules as to every step on this. And she is a wealth of information for anybody that has any questions. She said any questions that don't get answered tonight, she will call her tomorrow, and I can write them down. There is a vote on November, is what we're asking to, is to pretty much open this up to investigate this formally. And filing this petition, we can have a lot more access to the RSU information and the state information, and you would not have that kind of access if it was an informal, is what she explained to me. The other thing is this committee that gets put together, a lot of the people are asking me, what's it going to cost? Well, this is what we're going to investigate. This $25,000 to me, that's down the road, if that's the case. We would start putting together a budget of what Raymond would look like, is what it is, and what it would cost. And we can get different information from the state. This town has to vote. It's not the select board. It's not the group of four that votes. It's the town that votes whether or not we separate. And that will be at the end. But in the meanwhile, there'll be different meetings from November until later, because that committee is going to be updating people, is what it is. So the committee can turn around and call a town meeting, and say, you know what, this is where we're at. This is not a good idea. We're way in debt, blah, 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 all this different stuff. But we would have to call a town meeting for the town to decide. That committee of four cannot vote on it. The selectmen cannot vote and decide on it. It's a town thing. It's a town vote is what it is. And at the very end, if we go through, numbers look good, we're informing the public the entire way, or if everything falls into line or whatever happens, the town has to vote at the very end. And at the very end, they have to have a certain number of votes to be able to pass it. And that's one of the things Mike was talking about. We don't want this to pass on 200 votes. We want a big vote, if that's the case, because we want to cover everybody in the town, is what it is. So.
Before I ask for folks to step up, I did want to recognize Sandy Prince is here, our superintendent, and Don Davis is here, and many school board members are here. I don't know all the school members by face, so I apologize. And if we don't know the answers, which is a good chance as part of this discussion that we don't, and if the RSU members can't help enlighten us, we will write them down and we will add them to the website as soon as we can get the answers. So with that said, I'd like to open up to anybody who has questions or would like to make comments or whatever. I would ask that you keep your comments, in the 3-minute range-ish, and then we'll go from there. Thank you.
Hi there, I'm Katrina Sangster, 33 Roanoke Road. I just have a couple clarifying questions from the information you just shared. One is, you said if we vote yes, that it's not a sure thing. That's in reference to the fact that the 22 steps takes us to another vote. Is that correct?
There'll be a vote at the very end, is what it is. This vote just starts the process of the investigative work, is what happens. Because there'll be a 4-panel committee, and I don't know if you read up on the steps or not. It's specific as to who's on that committee by the state.
So how long do the steps take?
Don't know. It could take up to 2 years.
And the vote is then again put, just as this vote is coming to the entire town at a municipal election. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. I just have to express an opinion right now. I am no longer on the school board. I did sit on the school board of the RSU for 5 years. And, you know, consolidation was challenging, has been challenging. There is no denying that. And it's been disruptive, quite frankly. And, you know, it's difficult for me to see somebody who was such an advocate, Teresa, of consolidation so quickly backlashing against consolidation and really not giving the time to, you know, to work through some of the issues that you're having. So my concern is if this is a yes vote and it takes us 2 years to figure this thing out, our teachers are going to go bonkers. There has been a ton of growing pains. You're going to give them 2 years of not knowing what's happening next?
It could take up to 2 years.
They're just figuring out how to collaborate in a district and enjoying working with other teachers on committees district-wide that our students are benefiting from. And we're going to have up to 2 years of insecurity. I think this is the thing that my biggest concern, quite apart from the fact that I don't think consolidation has been a negative financially, and I'm sure I can, or some other people who are still on the board can share that information with you. But quite apart from that, where's the thought of our kids' education here in this town through all this? I've only heard the money piece. It's all I've heard coming out of the concerns here. And they're not even entirely accurately represented. So thank you.
Thank you. Next, step right up. Don't be bashful. I know there's a lot of people here. There must be more than one person who wants to speak.
Hi, my name is Sue Accardi, and I live in Raymond, of course. And I am, as a disclaimer, I work for the RSU. I'm the school nurse at the high school right now. I've been there for 18 years, between the middle school and the high school. Prior to that, I was the school nurse in Raymond for 4 years in the early 90s. I've been here for 30-plus years living, and my kids have gone through the system. I've been on the, I was 6 years on the Budget and Finance Committee as well. I'm very saddened over all of this. I remember back in the years when we were growing and we didn't have a place to send our middle school kids. I think many of you remember that. We didn't know where we were going to send them. And then we thought Poland was going to be the answer, and then for 1 year Poland took some of our high school kids, and then the next year they couldn't take them anymore. So we didn't know where we were going to take them. Many of them were going to Westbrook, many were going to Gray, some were going to Wyndham, many still went to Wyndham. So our kids were sort of like spread out all over the place. Middle school was still a real issue, because that was where the crunch was, because the middle school was very crowded, and they were, having difficulty there. So it was really hard. So there we were, because we were a district on our own with no base, no home in a high school, and we were just trying to figure it out. So that's when, you know, they decided to, decided to go ahead and build the elementary school and then have a K through 8 instead of a K through 6. And, but we still, for years, were tuitioning out our kids. And I try to look at some of the benefits of what's happened over the years with the consolidation, and I think about, you know, the maintenance and repair situation that's happening. I think about food service, the wonderful things that have happened in food service under Jeannie Riley. I look at those pictures of those kids in the cooking class in the RES. I think about health services, the consolidation, you know, the collaboration with the Raymond nursing, and how beneficial that's been for her as well as for us. I think about, you know, like special ed, 504s, all those kinds of things that we're working together to combine and to help, you know, structure. The work that has gone into the consolidation, you know, in terms of policies, I mean, the board has had to rework every one of the policies. They've had to, it's taken like 2 or 3 rounds of contract negotiations to get the contracts in place, a huge amount of work by staff from both schools. The curriculum direction that's going with the new efficiency-based diplomas and Common Core and all the work that's been going into that. I think about the high school, and I think about going back to when our high school kids don't have a home anymore, and that we're tuitioning them out again, and that Raymond as a community doesn't have a place at the table for policy. I mean, you always have a place at the table when it comes to your kids' education and meeting with teachers and administrators and all that. That is always the same. But in terms of this community being part of a high school, that you have a say. So we won't be at the table, but our checkbooks are going to be at the table. So I just hope that people think this through and find out what is going on. I'm not sure I know what's going on, really. I know there was a lot of heartburn over the redistricting issue. And I think there's a lot of hurt about that. And I'm concerned that that's where some of this is coming from, and I hope it isn't. I mean, yes, there is the middle school issue as well. And that's going to be a difficult thing to rectify. But I don't understand really where this is coming from and why we need to move ahead so quickly. I think it's going to take, I would think it would take like 10 years at least to really merge these 2 towns and make things feel like it's been like that for a long time. It's going to take a while. So I'm just hoping that this doesn't pass and that we can sit back and work together like we've been working together. They're doing the cost sharing committee. And see what happens, but that's it. So.
Thank you, sir. Other folks, this is what the public hearing is all about, to get some opinions out there and let your neighbors know what you think.
Yeah, I have some opinions. My name's Grace Levitt. I live on Levitt Road. I'm a teacher, not in the RSU, but I do teach at an SAD that has been an SAD for quite some time. So I wasn't teaching there at the time that it was 2 separate towns. And there have been issues off and on as far as one town versus another town, but it's really been a school district. And that was my hope for this RSU, that it would take time, as the previous speaker just said. It takes time. And time to some people may be a year or 2, but time when you're making such substantial changes is a good deal longer than we've given this effort. I have a couple of questions, comments, and certainly an opinion here. I was at another event the evening that you had the select board meeting when you decided to put this on the ballot. And I understand at some point you had to do something with the petition. But my last understanding of things, given what was in the paper, was that we were going to hold off because we were working on the cost-sharing formula with the RSU, looking at the middle school building possibilities, and that was work that was now getting going, that needed to maybe be going sooner, admittedly, but again, things take time. And it was the summer months when this push really started with this petition and came to the select board. So in any case, I'm actually telling somebody in the RSU, that very moment that you are making the decision to put on the ballot, that, no, last I heard, the person who had put the petition forward was going to hold off and give it some time. And then I come home, find out from my husband, who was watching the select board meeting, you voted to put it on the ballot. So I was more than dismayed at that. It's saying that the cost of, well, first of all, just in the question itself, you do say in the second mention of the 25,000 not to exceed, but in the first mention of it, it says to expend 25,000. And I did look up something, and that is the wording from the state, but I'm questioning why it doesn't say to expend up to 25,000 there, because that's not reading the way that you are saying it's reading, so I'm a little concerned about that. There are a lot of other costs to this. I don't know that 25,000 will be enough. I know you went back and forth over how much even this process would cost. Looking at some of the other districts that have been underway, going through it, the cost can be significant. I'd much rather put that money towards more staff for our kids or some other need for our kids. The RSU board, as I said, is working on the issues that you've mentioned as far as the cost. The whole issue of local control, again, the previous speaker just touched upon it. You lose all local control after grade 8 if we divorce from the RSU. There will be no local control whatsoever. I mean, it's policy issues, other kinds of issues. Yes, parents will still meet with their teachers, but again, you're not a part of the school community in no way, shape, or form. So that's a huge lack of logic in my mind, that if one of the issues is you want local control, we're going to lose it, even more so for kids that are really, I think, yes, I know early education is very important, but I teach high school. Those kids really need a community when they're at that level. So I hate to lose that. Let's see. Oh, I have to check my notes here. I do want to remind folks, I believe it was local control that kept some administrators' contracts ongoing as the RSU was formed, and there was not the decrease in cost initially that we were hoping for when consolidation was going to happen. So local control can sometimes not be such a good thing too. I believe that was a decision of the local school boards that made that decision. And I'm not hoping I'm not offending any administrators in the room currently, especially when behind my back here or somewhere it was. There he is, okay. But in any case, it happened in the district that I teach in that they were looking to consolidate with a neighboring town. The neighboring town ended up rejecting us, which I was awfully upset at, but they extended the contracts for both superintendents in both towns for umpteen years, even as we were going through the consolidation process. So in any case, that was local control, not at its best. It does say in the information brochure that you have on the website that we will keep school choice. That does need to be revisited every few years, correct?
No.
I thought we had to vote on that every 3 years or so.
No.
And that was has that changed in the legislation now?
Can I answer that?
Just let her finish and
okay.
then we'll go through.
Okay, because I would like an answer to that question, because if that's the case that we are revisiting that, I believe the last vote on it was fairly close, so that could turn at some point in time, and that just seemed like it was somewhat misleading. There are a lot of people, I think, in the town that really don't want their public tax dollars going to private schools. So that may well increase if we are faced with a situation where we don't have an RSU, and we're back at the situation that I experienced with my kids when they were younger, of not knowing where they were going to go, and their friends scattering to umpteen different places. And so really those friendships were lost. I just don't want a repeat of that for anybody. We lived through it. It was very, very stressful. It's hard enough to have a middle school student who's looking at high school and all those transition issues, but having to face that decision at that age is really tough. And I think people said the last time I was here, a couple of meetings ago, that you were talking about this before it was on the ballot. People were assuming that Wyndham would just jump at the chance to have a contract for our students. I'm not so sure that that's the case. I'm not seeing some of the other places jumping to have contracts. I mean, why would they? And if they did, would it necessarily be a cost saving to us? And again, then we'd be paying the money but still have no say in what happens there. So I'm quite concerned about that. You do have to have a contract somewhere with the students. And in a position we were in before the RSU, at that point Wyndham was looking at the the building for the high school, and they wanted a guarantee of a certain number of students that would attend there, or at least the money for them, even if they didn't attend. Well, if we are in a situation like that again, because schools do need to plan. They need to plan on how many students they're planning on having for enrollment. They need to plan more than just a few months ahead. They need to plan years ahead and try to be sure they have the programs they need and the resources that they need. And so they need some type of a guarantee of how many students will be attending, or the funds will be there. So I could see that as being an awfully significant increase in the cost to Raymond if we're getting a contract where we're saying we'll send X number of students, whether we send them or not, we're going to pay for them, whether it's with Wyndham or some other town. I'm quite concerned about that cost. And let's see, I guess that's about it for now.
Thank
Are
you.
there answers to the questions? Should I stay or?
I think there will
Is it
be
follow-up?
answers to your questions to the best we can, yes.
Okay.
Teresa, do you want to say why we changed from what she had heard in the general public? I know you went over that at our meeting.
Why we
but-
changed, I mean, why I decided to put it after all?
That's correct, that's the first
Um,
question.
when I took the petition out, I had my own reasons as far as the middle school goes. I had, and when I held off, I said at the school board meeting, I had said I would wait. And then I had talked to quite a few people in the public, and the comment that was said, a couple comments that were said to me was, why do I have the right to hold on a petition of 300 and some signatures to make that decision for everybody that signed that petition? And it's not my right. I had it out there. People signed it for multiple reasons is what it was. Not just for the high school, and not just for lack of say, not for money, for various reasons. So there, and it's a good point. Why should I have a say over what 352 people say? So that's why I brought it to the board.
Do I get to respond or no? Okay.
Let me go through if you don't mind. My understanding, Sue, I'm gonna put you on the spot here, is we had basically no choice how to word this question other than how to put the money in.
Exactly.
So that was spelled out by state law. Everybody who has gone through this, when they started the same process that's being considered here, had the exact same question. And if there's anything that has confused people is, over the last month when I've talked to them, it's that question. It is, at best, poorly worded, okay? So you don't know what you're voting on, and unless you read in the paper or find out more information, online or through conversation, it does not say that you are investigating whether or not to leave. It says you're leaving. And I'm trying, hopefully, as part of this process and the education of this, that it is a vote, right? As the speakers have said, it's a yes or no vote to whether or not to investigate a separation. And that's why we're here tonight, to hopefully get more information. Sue, anything to add to the wording of the question?
The state tends to word things based on the advice of the AG's office, which means you've got, I hope there aren't lawyers here, and if they are, I apologize, but you have lawyers talking legalese, and that's why the questions are generally worded the way they are. It's to cover the legal aspects. There is on the ballot, I was able to put a title on it, and it's the proposal to begin the process of. So I tried to put it in there as gently as I could, that it's just the beginning of that, but I couldn't change the wording of the question.
I'll also follow up. We did have a discussion on numbers at our meeting in September, and I think it's everybody's intent from that vote, what it says in the last line, up to, not to exceed. If we hit that number by any chance, we would have to come back to the public and say, do you want to continue? We have spent our $25,000, we're gonna ask for more money, and at that point, we can still pull the plug. And at any point during the process, the committee can come to the board and ask us to go back to the public and say, we wanna stop the process. The process does not have to finish to have a yes or no vote as to withdrawing. We can change and and that's the way I read the steps.
Yes,
Teresa?
but the committee would come back to the board. The board would hold then another public hearing, and it would be the town that votes, not the board that stops it.
Correct.
So it's the town-driven to do this.
Right, it would come through the board to send it back out, much like the same process
Right.
we're doing right now. Okay, so Grace, I'll give you an opportunity to follow up on your first question.
Well, as far as the holding the 352 signers of the petition, I think a lot more people, and I'm assuming at least some of them signed it, are now more informed about, what this really could mean. And we're perhaps signing it in response to some issues that maybe we've gotten a little more information about. And I'm certain that we're getting more information as the group from the RSU, from the RSU board is working on looking at the cost-sharing formula. So I can understand that, but still giving it a little more time. It just feels very premature to be voting on spending $25,000, and it does say 25,000. I know it's the state's wording. I looked it up myself, that it doesn't say up to. So I hope it's really clear that it's up to, and not we're just handing $25,000 over to attorneys when we could better spend that on our students. The other question is about school choice and the vote on that. My understanding of that process for school choice was that there's a time period. I thought it was 3 years that it gets voted on every so often. Do I need another petition?
No, what happens is with school choice is we had to make that decision before we consolidated, and I was on the school board at the time. And Sue Gendron was the Commissioner of Education at the time, and she came and spoke to us about it. And what happens is when we either had to vote to keep choice or not to, and whatever happened is when we went into the RSU, that's what we were locked in with. Nothing was ever said about revoting or anything like that.
We had a second vote on it after forming the RSU, is my absolute recollection
No.
that that's the law.
No.
Well, I'll research that some more, because I thought that was
And it
something
wasn't
that
a close
periodically.
vote, it was a 2-to-1 vote.
Okay, well, I thought it was periodically supposed to be revisited by any town that had that.
We will look back as to when. I know that part of school choice before the RSU was we had to validate that every so many years. And so I sure we can have that question
check
answered
into
and
that?
put up onto. Yeah,
Thank you.
we'll find out, and we'll answer both, whether it can be revisited, is it a done deal, and when was
Yeah,
the
it can
last
always-
vote?
Any ballot question can always be brought up, that's not but somebody has to come forward with a petition, or the select board decides to put it on a warrant.
So what would that petition require? Do you have any idea?
Sue?
Same as anything else, 10% of the
10% of the,
votes cast in the gubernatorial.
the last gubernatorial.
So that'll be a big one this time, huh?
2023, but this
Yeah.
coming
Will be
November
higher.
will probably be higher.
Okay, thank you.
And just so you know, this is not an easy vote. You have to have, as of January 1st, it's a 2/3 vote of the town that wants to withdraw. It's not a majority vote, it's 2/3. So,
Louise?
I think possibly where the vote to be taken again, that confusion may have been that I believe the town has to vote every 3 years as to whether they're gonna vote on the budget, on the school budget. And that does have a time frame connected to it. So that could be where the confusion is there.
Thank you, Louise. Other folks?
Hi, my name is Michelle Jordan, and I'm actually a resident of Wyndham, so I want to ask permission if I could make a comment.
We did ask for unanimous
Oh, you
consent at
did?
the
Okay,
beginning of the
sorry.
meeting, so you're good, yes.
There was like an accident or something down by the Good Life Market, so I crawled along. Like I said, I'm a resident of Wyndham. I have a 6th grader and a 3rd grader, and I certainly have an opinion about this process, but I don't think it's appropriate for me to necessarily share that with you. My feeling is, though, that it's disappointing that 352 people signed the petition, and there are 30 people in this room, and some of us are school board members, some of us aren't even residents of one of the of Raymond. So I encourage you to talk to your neighbors, talk to your friends, make sure that people are fully educated before you make your vote on November 4th. As Teresa said, there's a lot of various issues that people have of why they want to withdraw from the RSU. So you need to make sure you fully understand it. I was part of the Middle School Advisory Committee. I know that there's some misinformation out there, so I encourage you, contact a member of that committee and have your questions answered before you vote. And I hope that you can share that message with all of your friends and neighbors so that we make a smart choice on November 4th, because as has already been previously stated, this will have a huge impact on your children, and it has a huge impact on our children in Wyndham as well, while we're waiting to kind of go through this process. And I also encourage you to be involved. It's hard. I go to almost every school board meeting, so this is not a surprise to me because I've heard a lot of the history and things that are going on, but most people don't do that. So no matter what happens on November 4th, I encourage you to get involved, go to school board meetings, talk to administrators, go to your schools, so that you can understand everything that's happening behind the scenes, so that you don't get frustrated with maybe misinformation or you're confused by information. So I encourage you, please get educated before you vote, and once you vote, whether you're still part of the RSU or you're not, please get involved so that all of our children's educations are what the #1 priority in our communities and not our tax dollars. Thank you.
Good point.
Other folks, step up. You go right ahead.
I'm Marley Turner, 31 Big Pine Road, Raymond. I'm somebody who signed the petition. I have a lot of questions now. Not only what I'm hearing tonight, but things I've been reading. I think the reason I signed the petition, I hated to see this Jordan Small School not being expanded and used and fixed. And signing it doesn't solve that problem. I think there's a lot to learn. I'm an example of someone who needs to learn a lot. And the chances are I will not be voting in favor of this because I think the students are more important than money. I think community is more important than just some people's opinions. I think we have a great community, and I like the fact that we can work together. I'm somebody who thinks that consolidation is something we had to do, and we certainly have not given it long enough time. Thank you.
Other folks? I'm not going to wait too much longer.
Diana Froisland, Daggett Drive. I just have to say I'm a little confused about the question because I keep hearing you guys say this just starts in a advisory type committee that's exploring this possibility. However, if you read it, you know, given the legalese, this starts the process of withdrawal. So it is a huge deal. And I think there's confusion in the community of what exactly the question means. And every time you speak to it, you really make it sound like it's some type of advisory committee, which I wish actually you had formed instead of rushing ahead with this, because it is a lengthy process, and I have read the steps. And my question is, you do need to give a reason to the Department of Education of why you're withdrawing. Has anybody, do you already have a group that's begun to work on this at all? Has any work been done as far as budgets? But mostly, what reason are you giving to the Department of Education for the withdrawal, since this question starts the process?
Teresa, do you have an answer for that one?
When I called and got information, told them was because of the middle school advisory committee, that they were thinking about building a middle school with no school funding, state funding and stuff like that. And I guess just for clarification, I am one person in this whole town of voting, okay? I cannot change the vote. This is just my thing. So it's gonna take the town to vote, so.
But I didn't know if you had a committee already in place. I don't know how, you know, I'm sure it wasn't solely you who put the petition together, unless it was. If you had other people that were helping you. At the prior meeting in September, you said you had plenty of people that were more than willing to help you put budgets together.
I do have people that are willing, and we just haven't done anything yet, because one of the things the state has says is now, This is the start of the petition to withdraw. It is, yes.
Yes.
But it's not withdrawing. It's to formally gather information that we can stop that. It's not just because we vote yes in November doesn't mean that we are going to be separating no matter what happens down the line. It's to gather the information is the way I'm taking it. And Paula had said to me, she said she's reading in, Paula Graville is reading in the newspapers that it's kind of confusing. And I said, and it has been very clarified here that we're starting the investigative process is what it is. So I have people that I have talked to about putting together budgets, working in a group. We haven't as of yet, because if the vote's no, then there's no reason to do it. Do you know what I mean?
Yes, but the initial push then was the middle school, which is not really an issue currently. So now is it about the money?
It's
Now,
about
what
a
would you
lot
give
of,
them as
it's
the
about a lot
reason?
of things. A lot of reasons that people have told me. Various reasons.
Okay. Well, then I can share some money information with you if you would like. Prior to consolidation, I'm on the school board for everybody, just so you know. We've been looking at facts and figures, since I'm sure for some people, the money considerations are part of their thinking as to why it might be a good idea. However, if you look back to the 6 years prior to consolidation, the tax increases in Raymond increased by $1.6 million, and after consolidation, the increase was only $450,000. That says to me that there was a cost savings since consolidation. And also, if you have to look at, I know an issue with the whole middle school advisory committee, you were talking about the debt service. How would we handle the debt service and equating it to the additional shared assessments that we have? But the debt service can be handled separately, which we have said with our cross-sharing formula committee that we've put together, the debt service can be handled separately. So really that should be a non-issue now as well.
But that has to be voted upon by the towns of Wyndham and Raymond. So you can't say it's really not a non-issue because Wyndham has to pass that by several votes is what it is. So the school board can say it's a non-issue, but Wyndham can turn around and say, oh no, we're not taking on additional debt. So it's not a done deal.
It's true, it does have to be voted on, but it's not the same as the additional shared assessment. It is a separate factor. And yes, we will have to go to vote on that. The other thing is, I don't know if you've done research, you would have to, if you put back the additional staff that would be required if we were our own school system, I mean, that could be, just from facts and figures we've tried to put together, that could be over $500,000 right there, just in the additional staff we would have to hire. We put some numbers to the tuition rates. We have 172 high school kids, and if you use a figure of $7,900, that's $1.3 million for the tuition of the high school kids. And that's probably a realistic minimum amount. So, I mean, those are just a couple of figures we started looking at. And again, I didn't know if you had done any research so far. So for people that are interested in the money aspects, just looking at the tax figures from prior and now, I mean, that was a huge savings from the last 5 years. And also, if you average out our increases for the last 5 or 6 years, the tax increases have only been about 1% per year. Because the first 2 years, we actually had taxes decrease. So if you average out the last couple of years, it was only a 1%, average 1% increase, which I think is actually pretty fabulous. So, I'm disappointed that this has gone through so quickly. I realize once you gathered the petition, the signatures, that now it has to go to ballot, but it seems very rushed. I have no idea what citizens would base the vote on. Based on what? Do you want to start the withdrawal process? Based on what? Initially, you know, you had reasons for the middle school. It's rather a non-issue now. How are people supposed to make that decision? So,
A lot of people are going on cost sharing, on lack of say, in the town as far as any kind of representation, the middle school costs. And once again, I mean, yeah, I think it's going to be expensive to run Raymond, but also Raymond feels that we've got control back into Raymond. And this is just, I'm feeding back to you what people told me. I didn't force anybody to sign that petition. I just said, this is why I'm doing it. And people are saying, you don't even know, you don't even need to go into an explanation. I'll sign it. But that's what I'm going off of on this, is the cost sharing, is the middle school advisory not utilizing the buildings we have now, and the lack of say.
But I believe people that signed the petition were initially told there was a middle school building project.
I
That's
did
not
say
a
that.
fact.
But I also told other things. We had huge conversations, is what it was. A lot of people that were, and people didn't even. They said, I don't even want to hear your spiel. Just let me sign, and I'm like, whoa, okay. So I mean, there's a lot of people out of 352, and I know there's a lot more people in town. But if they don't want to, then vote no.
Right.
You know what I mean? Everybody has a choice. Everybody has an opinion. This is just me starting it because this is how I felt. Okay.
Right.
So nobody
But
has to sign
it's starting
it.
a withdrawal
It was.
process.
It was the
based
withdrawal of the middle
on-
school. The middle school's put aside. We still have the cost sharing. That cost sharing can take us all the way to June, as far as doing a vote like April, March,
Right.
and it could go no, and we're right back at square one. That's the question I asked the attorney down at your guys' meeting. So once again, we're paying 45% over and above the EPS, and we have what in the schools? That's a lot of money, and this should have been looked at before. And like I said, this is me. Anytime anybody wants to say no, one person here. I don't vote for the whole town. This is just my stake on it.
But just to put that in perspective, that additional share, just so people are aware, that is like 10% of the budget. And I'm not saying it's not important. I'm a taxpayer. However, just to put it into perspective so that people understand, it is about 10% of the budget.
That's taxed at 45%. Can you clarify that, Dana?
Didn't hear you.
Katrina, you want to try to clarify? I don't know what you're... Thank you.
I think, Diana, what you're saying is the 45% is the addition, it's on 10% of the overall budget. We are not paying 45% of the school budget, okay?
Over EPS.
Only the over
Exactly.
EPS, and that was based on our numbers from prior to consolidation. And I think what's better to look at is, how much more money we've been spending in the last 6 years versus how much more money each year we were spending in the 6 years prior to consolidation. To me, that's, where the rubber meets the road. Diane just quoted, and I'm going to say it again, it was 1.6 million increase in the 6 years prior to consolidation and less than $500,000 increase in the 6 years after consolidation. Okay, to me, that means money. That means that's something tangible. While I'm at the podium, Katrina Sangster, 33 Walnut Road. I've got to think about what I was going to say now. Yes, just to clarify, since we're clarifying things, and I'd like to thank Michelle Jordan for coming up and speaking. I'm sure it's not easy to be here from Wyndham tonight and to speak so passionately. People, there's a lot of people out there who want to make this work, and there's a lot of emotion behind it, so it's hard. But the middle school advisory committee was just that. And in you telling people that there's a plan to build a middle school, that was never true. That there was an advisory committee that was coming up with options, that were investigating. There were people townspeople from Raymond, townspeople from Wyndham, the exact same number from both towns, and there were some really wonderful conversations, as well as administrators and school board members, about concerns that, quite frankly, Wyndham had concerns about how Raymond felt, and Raymond had concerns about how Wyndham felt. I mean, we're all human beings. And that advisory committee came up with 3 recommendations to the board. This was not what is to happen. These were recommendations to the board about how we thought they might look into proceeding. And there were 3 different options. And unfortunately, incorrect information is out in the press, because I read in the Portland Press false information about the fact that there's not all 3 options of building new construction. With the exception of, that the third one option is building for Wyndham only, which wouldn't, the plan would be not to, that would be just for Wyndham students. Anyway, the bottom line is that a lot of misinformation got out there, which is, I think many people were not educated when they signed that petition. And I hope that people have watched tonight and will consider what they've heard. And thank you all for sharing.
And this is exactly why we're all here, right? Is to try to get more information out, to try to have people learn more before they vote 3 weeks from today. Yes?
Okay, I wasn't going to speak, and I'm not here to answer questions. I'm Marge Gavoni. I come from Wyndham. I'm the chair of the RSU School Board. Speaking of clarification, there was a comment made about not having representation for Raymond on the board. That statement is totally untrue. We value the numbers of the Raymond School Board members is lower. That is something driven down to us from the state. It has nothing to do with who got picked or whatever. We have had great representation from the Raymond board members that the Raymond residents voted for. They represent you very, very well. I think there's been a fair representation. We have been very conscious, we being the Wyndham ones, we've been very conscious of the needs of the Raymond residents, the Raymond student, the Raymond teachers. So I would like to actually, I'd like that kind of taken back, because that's not a true statement. There has been good representation. Our board meetings are always open, so anyone can attend. We make a point of having 2 meetings a month. One of them is in Wyndham, one of them is in Raymond. We have tried to be as equitable as we possibly can be, and I think we've done a really good job of that. And I just wanted to straighten that piece out. And the other thing is about petitions, and I've been around a long time. And I can tell you, if somebody approaches me with a petition and I think they're passionate and feel they have a valid reason, I will sign it. It doesn't mean I will vote for it, but I will sign it because they have a right to have what they're passionate about out there for the public to make a decision on. So I don't think there should ever be the assumption that because X amount of people have signed a petition, that those are the amount of people who are really for it. And that's the only 2 clarifications I want to make. Thank you very much.
Marge, before you step down.
I'm not here to answer questions, but go ahead.
Yes, you are. You're going to answer this one for me. You ready?
I will try.
When's your next meeting?
Tomorrow evening.
Where?
Here.
Where? Here? Right here?
Right here.
What time?
Right here. Actually, we have 2 meetings tomorrow night. We have a meeting at 6 o'clock with the select board, and it's open, naturally. It's very difficult. Everybody says, well, we didn't know, but I can guarantee you, because I know they do up here, and we do too, is we publicize. It just, for some reason, people look for what they're looking for, and so they don't notice it all. But we do have a meeting tomorrow night at 6 o'clock with the select board. It's a short workshop, but it's so we can all get to know each other. There seems to be this feeling of disconnect, so we're trying to get together with the RSU board and your select board and your town manager, so everybody knows everybody else, and then there'll be more of a feeling of openness. And so if there's questions, nobody's going to read it in the paper, hopefully. Someone's going to pick up a phone, send an email, do something, and then we have our regular school board meeting. That'll be directly after that at 6:30. You're right, I could answer that.
You could answer that, couldn't you?
Thank you.
Last chance.
Michelle Jordan Wyndham. I just would like to provide some additional information about the middle school project because it keeps coming up and I think it's important that it's shared. I was extremely frustrated that the petition in this process is stopping the middle school conversation because I think there was a lot of really good information to get out there for people to understand. And we had this exact conversation in that room is how is everyone going to feel about it and how is this going to work? So I think it's unfortunate because this has stopped us from being able to educate everybody on how we got to those 3 recommendations. I agree with Therese, it's frustrating that we have to self-fund a middle school, but the reality is we're never going to get money from the state. And I think the RSU has done a good job waiting as long as they can. They started this process, they applied to the state for funding when my son was in kindergarten, and now he's in 6th grade. And we were really far down on the list then. And we waited and waited and waited, and every year Don kept coming back and saying, nope, there's still not money. Nope, there's still not money. Nope, there's still not money. But the reality is all 3 of our middle school buildings are in desperate need of repair. And Jordan Small is as well. It needs a roof, it needs windows, it has an inefficient heating system. There are a lot of issues with that building. So even if we don't replace Wyndham Middle School, you still need to invest money in your middle school here. We need to invest money in our middle schools in Wyndham. As you may know, we're using a 67-year-old building to educate our 6th graders in Wyndham. And we have another building that is running inefficiently, is not accessible for all students, is not fire safe. All of our buildings are in need of repair. And it's unfortunate that we weren't able to get out all of that information. And we made 3 recommendations thinking about how everyone was going to feel about this process. The residents and students and staff of Raymond, and the residents and students and staff of Wyndham, so that people could come out and publicly speak and ask questions and talk to the school board. And based on all of that, the school board would have 3 options that we felt one of those options could satisfy and meet everybody's needs. And if that meant refurbishing Jordan Small and building a new school in Wyndham, self-funding each of our own projects, then that's what the school board and the community should do, if that's what's best going to meet everybody's needs. So I encourage you again, all of the middle school advisory committee information is on the school board website. I know it's really tedious and boring to read minutes, but there's a lot of information out there about this process and about what's needed for these buildings. And there was conversation about redistricting. I know it's a terrible word, and I support redistricting. I think it's a good idea, but unfortunately it doesn't work. And we had that conversation. We have 200 students in our Field Allen School in Wyndham. If we move those 200 students, their 200 siblings who are in K through 5 would have to come with them. We don't have room for 400 students in Raymond. We can't make that work. It's unfortunate, but we can't do it. The proposal that happened last year to move Wyndham students would not have eliminated 1 classroom in Wyndham because it would have only been able to move 5 or 6 students from each grade. And that's not the space savings that the middle school would need in Wyndham. So again, unfortunately, we talked about those options, we explored them, and they didn't work. So now here we are trying to get the best, safest environment for our students and staff, the best educational environment for our students and staff. So please learn more about the middle school process. If that's your concerning issue about the RSU, please learn more. You can contact any member of the advisory committee, and I know that we'd be happy to talk to you about it. Go find all those minutes and learn more about it, because we really did think about what was going to be best for all of our students in presenting those 3 options. And yes, it's unfortunate, but there's no money. The state keeps giving us less money for our education. They're not going to pay for our school, and unfortunately, we just have to deal with that. So, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Last word from someone who hasn't spoken? Okay, this will be the last. Thank you.
I'll be very quick. I really just wanted to introduce myself. I'm Jen Moore. I'm a brand new school board member as of June, and so I really don't know a lot. I can't spout any facts off to you, but what I do want to convey to you is that I care deeply about this community. I was on, also prior to being a board member, I was on the middle school advisory committee, so I just wanted to let people know that I care about finding the answer. I won't know the answer right off the top of my head, but I'm learning and I'm listening, and please contact me, and I think all of the board members would say, please contact us with any questions that you have, and we'll do our best to answer them for you. So,
thank you. We will get as many of these questions answered as we can and get them up on the website as soon as possible. The election for this question is 3 weeks from today on November 4th. The polls open in Raymond at 7 a.m. And also, if you're not going to be here, you can vote absentee. At this point, I'd ask for a motion to close the public hearing.
Can I just make a comment?
Do you need to do it before we close it or after?
No.
Okay, yes.
Concerning this.
All right.
I was the sole vote to not go forward with this, and there was only one reason, is because I wanted to meet with the school board to see where you were at. And I guess my biggest concern is I was on the consolidation committee. I was actually on the middle school study committee back in 2008. So I kind of have been involved in this for a very long time. My concern is when we did the consolidation, the funding formula was supposed to be looked at after 3 years. It's 6 years later now, and we are just looking at it. And I guess Don and Sandy, when we meet with you tomorrow night, I would just like an answer as to why it wasn't looked at for 6 years, after 3 years, and we had to wait 6 years until all this brouhaha happened. Now you're finally looking at the funding formula. And I guess that is my only concern, and I wanted to meet with the school board and ask that question. And hopefully you'll have an answer for me tomorrow night.
Thank you, Joe. Motion to adjourn the public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor? Thank you all for coming. I do encourage you all to continue to ask questions and vote on November 4th. Thank you. Welcome back from the public hearings. We'll now move on to new business. I'm going to take some new business out of order. I'm going to go to E, the consideration of Town of Wyndham and Raymond RSU 14. B, the influence resolution. We have some representatives here from the RSU and the Wyndham Police Department. I'll introduce Officer Matthew Sear. And Matthew, if you would take care of introducing the rest of the folks that are here this evening, that would be great. And give us a 5-minute overview of the resolution. And
Absolutely.
We'll go from
First
there.
and foremost, thank you folks very much for the time. My name is Matthew Sear. I work for the Wyndham Police Department as its Community Services Officer, and I do all the community policing programs for the department. With me, I have the Assistant Principal from the Wyndham High School, Kelly DeVoe, as well as the Guidance Counselor from Jordan Small and RES, Lenny Davis, and should you folks have some questions for some students, I've got a couple behind me with Ashley Lewis, who is a Raymond resident, and Griffin McVeigh, who's a Wyndham resident. So we want to introduce to you folks a huge idea. And it's an idea that has come forth through a whole bunch of time and a whole bunch of work. And we really want to do what we can to really paint the picture of this idea for you. And to get started with a little bit of background and history of this, I want to have Mr. Vogt take over and give you kind of that background so you kind of get where we're coming from.
We have worked collaboratively with the Wyndham Police Department, with the Sheriff's Office, with folks throughout our communities to address issues around substance use and abuse. And we see its effects in all of our own pockets. The business community has seen it. We see it in our schools. Certainly law enforcement sees it. But we were all working in isolation to address the issue. It became very clear that this is not the best or the smartest way to be working when you're trying to address a community-wide issue. So in March, on a very, very snowy day, school was closed, but we were open by golly, and we had a whole bunch of people who came together. We've had our town managers from both Raymond and from Wyndham. We've had law enforcement agencies with both the Sheriff's Office and Wyndham Police Department. We've had our local librarians. Sally Holt has joined us from Raymond. We also had some prevention counselors with SMART Family Services that deals with substance use and abuse. Amy Senator from our Lakes Region Chamber of Commerce has joined us, as well as educators from both the Raymond schools, the Wyndham schools, from the middle schools, from the high school, coaches. We've had parents, and we've had student involvement as well. And in fact, you'll see our logo, which was crafted with the assistance of students, was actually student designed gentlemen. This is our logo on their shirts.
So you guys step up so he
Step
can
up so we can get a good shot of that. This, a student, Alec Warfel at Wyndham High School, designed this logo for us with input from the Community Collaborative. It's what we've called ourselves, this large group. We came up with some key terms, key ideas, and we handed it over to the graphic design class and said, come up with, and they did. And they came up with some amazing representations of what we were looking for. We also had student input on how the message should be, and they told us, don't preach to us. They said, this is what we want to hear. Be the influence, decisions matter. And from that, our slogan was born. So I'm going to have Lynn talk about sort of how we've seen it in the schools.
Well, I think that what we've seen is that students are most influenced by the adults in their lives until about middle school, and then it becomes their peers. And but what a lot of research says is that once they get to the point where they are kind of listening to their peers more, what we do in front of them as adults, both in the school, in the community, influences them. And research in which we have some slides, and I'm going to read them to you. Normally I wouldn't read something that was projecting, but is that, you know, adults in the community that think underage drinking is okay, that high school students are twice as likely to drink if they believe that their community members feel that it's okay. And that high school students who know adults who have been drunk or high in the past 5 years are 5 times more likely to drink and 4 times more likely to use marijuana. So the statistics startled the committee. It made us say, okay, well, what can we do about this? We can't preach to them because most of the time they're listening to their peers. So we want to make sure that if we have these children that are impressionable, that we're providing them with positive influences, not only as adults, but hopefully their peers will do the same. And so what do we do to do that? How do we make sure that what the message they're getting from all of us, law enforcement, schools, businesses, is a positive one that says, okay, well, this is how we're living, and this is what we hope that you'll choose to live like. And so that's kind of where the Be the Influence campaign got its oomph, is we said, okay, we're gonna make sure that everybody's giving the same message, that if you see us living this way, then this is what we hope that you'll choose to live like. So.
We've also learned from the kids that the scare tactics of just don't doesn't always work. And what they're really saying to us is what they want to hear is how not to.
Yeah.
So how do we build communities that students feel valued in, and they feel that they have a voice and a say in their own well-being in the community?
Absolutely, and as a community services officer, I work, yes, closely with the schools, but I also have the opportunity to work with businesses. I get the chance to work with social services. I get a chance to work with Parks and Recreations departments. Every aspect I can possibly wiggle myself into, I try to. And one of the things that we've noticed just with the business communities alone is it's had an impact on their bottom dollar. If they have, as an example, an employee who gets arrested for a UI the night before, they can't work the next day because they can't get themselves there because they're in jail, or if their licenses are suspended, or if people, because of drugs and alcohol, get into a domestic violence situation, it just snowballs and it keeps growing and growing and growing. So the business community is certainly seeing an impact from this, but also as law enforcement, we're seeing this happen quite regularly. Both the Cumberland County Sheriff's Department and the Wyndham Police Department, really those are the two law enforcement agencies we're really kind of concerned with here. We're working together with the Be the Influence campaign, and we're doing this because of what we see on a daily basis. I tell the DARE kids regularly that a day doesn't go by I don't see some sort of negative influence from somebody using drugs or alcohol. And it's unfortunate that that's the case. With that said, we kind of have a vision that's come into play when it comes to this Be the Influence campaign. And again, I started earlier by saying this is a huge idea. It's huge. It's a big idea that we really need to wrap our hands around, because it's not just myself, it's not just the assistant principals at the schools or the guidance staff or our business community, this issue is everybody's issue to deal with, period. It's everyone's. So what we want to do is make sure that we provide support and resources to all stakeholders. We want to communicate consistent messages. One of the issues that we run across regularly is we are not being consistent enough. From parents telling their kids about this stuff, straight through to businesses making the choice to sell to that underage person or not, straight through to coaches and law enforcement, everyone, from the educational piece to the enforcement piece, we're not being consistent enough. So we want to make sure that we are providing those consistent messages and really proving to the kids that it may seem like the majority of the kids are using, but it's not. It's the majority that are not using. The reason why we think it's the majority is because those are the ones we hear about. Flick on the news. What do we hear about? The bad stuff. All right. We want to support positive and healthy choices. We also want to assure young people that they live in a community that cares about them. Decisions matter. Be the influence. So far, we've gathered support from the Wyndham Town Council, which on September 23rd passed a resolution in support of the collaborative. On September 29th of this year, the Opportunity Alliance announced a $60,000 coaching and technical support for the collaborative to seek further funding through federal programs. On October 1st, the RSU 14 Board of Directors passed a resolution in support of the collaborative, and also on October 2nd, the Lakes Region Chamber of Commerce and the Sebago Lakes Rotary agreed to sign joint resolutions in support of this collaborative. And as a real quick side note, I challenged my guys, these guys belong to a program that I do, and I challenged that group 2 weeks ago to come up with a motto for them that really works for their group as far as what it means to be a leader. And what we're really asking people to do with this Be the Influence campaign is we're asking everybody to step up and be a leader and be that positive influence. And as I said before, that's a huge idea, and it's a huge idea for me to ask people of this age to step up and be a leader and positively influence their peers. And what they came up with was 3 different statements, which I'll give to you real quick. The statement number 1 was, take the road less traveled. And I think as adults we can look back at that one and say, okay, we think everybody's using, but we want to take the road less traveled and be the ones that don't. Well, with kids we need to make sure they know it's the majority that aren't using. 2, we're all like dominoes. If one of us falls, we all fall. And then the last one was, we're not camouflage, don't blend in. And in our discussion with the group, we really took that "we're not camouflage" comment and we changed it into "don't be camouflage." And what we mean by that is if we catch each other not being the influence and just blending in with the crowd and succumbing to the peer pressure and doing whatever, we need to look at each other and say, don't be camouflage. And I think what we're here tonight asking the select board and what we've asked other groups, and as adults we're asking you folks, don't be camouflage. Let's do what we can to really be the influence for these kids, because we need the help. We need the help to do what's right for these kids.
At this point, with a mere $1,500, we have had banners made, we have had handouts made for parents on some tips. We've actually been able to have a website developed that has resources, and I would ask, our final asks for you, check out our website. It is BeTheInfluenceWRW.org. That is BeTheInfluenceWyndhamRaymondWins.org. We would ask that you check and ensure that all of our policies, all of the environments that we create for our kids encourage and celebrate healthy decisions. We ask that you all seek out those opportunities to be the influence, and we ask that you join us as a stakeholder and support a joint resolution in support of this collaborative. We will be working together with the $60,000 grant with the technical support that Matt's mentioned. With $60,000 in technical support, we'll be looking to garner federal funds to make this really big idea a really big success. We welcome any questions.
I'm just getting a note here. We already have a link on the website to you. So we've already done that.
Yes.
That's
Nice.
Now check it out, because it's really cool.
Board members have questions? We want to put the kids on the spot and make them ask us for something? Squirm. We want to make them squirm? Who's the leader over there? I want you each to introduce yourselves. Tell us where you live. Start with that.
My name's Griffin McVeigh, and I live in Wyndham, right off of River Road.
Great.
My name's Ashley Lewis, and I live right off the road too.
And are one of you willing to tell me why you came tonight? Why now I know that you came to model a T-shirt, so you can't use that. But what else? Anything else you want to add while you got a chance before we talk about this resolution?
He's like, we weren't supposed to talk.
You don't have to. I'm just offering.
Don't be camouflaged now.
Right.
Oh, called you out on your own stage.
I don't know where to start.
What's it mean to be a leader?
To be a leader is to really not go with the crowd. You could either be, there's two things that you can be. It's a follower and a leader. And the leaders are really what really make an impact on the community. And if you're a leader with positive roles, you really, for the followers, if you make a good decision, then the followers will follow you and they will also make good decisions. So I really think that being a leader is a very important role in our community.
Well said.
Nice job, Griffin.
I think too, when we had the discussions on the committee and you hear young men like that are willing to step up like that and say that, and I think that it isn't hard, quite honestly, to find groups like that. And in the work that I do out here in Raymond, there's a lot of kids that are willing to step up and say, you know, I want to try to lead people to make better decisions. But what we felt when we talked about all of this is it can't just be that. It has to be everybody. And if it's not law enforcement connected with the town representatives, with both towns representatives, with everybody, then if we're not all influencing the process, then you can't just have one piece of it. And so we have the kids that'll step up, I think. So we all need to support them as adults.
Questions from the board?
I just think you guys stepping up is great because other people just want to stay in the back going, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to stay in the back and not say anything. And this here says, well, if he can step up, then I can step up is what it is. And that takes a lot for you guys to do that. I think the last time I saw Ashley was like little blonde hair, a couple years old, yeah, with Jason Grindle running around. Yes. Yeah.
Do we need a motion here?
We do.
I make a motion, we support the resolution for the,
You want
the influence resolution.
I second that motion.
Further discussion?
No.
All those in favor? Opposed? It's unanimous.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you guys.
We look forward to filling you in on our next steps.
Yeah.
You say 2 copies?
Good stuff.
That was great, guys.
Sure, I have
Thank
one.
you.
Thank you guys.
Nice work.
The paper put together.
Oh, that's smart.
I'm just,
There's 2 in there.
I'm tired. I'm so ready to go home and get dinner.
All right.
Next item of business is under new business, consideration of contract with Pan Atlantic for community survey. And that is
Let me do this one.
You're gonna do it in the whole.
our consideration for the contract before we talk about the actual survey. Don Willard?
Well, Danielle says she's able to do it and wants to do it, so.
Danielle, you want to do it?
Yeah. So this past June at town meeting, funds were allocated towards completing a community survey. So we sent out an RFP, and we got back 9 proposals. Of those 9 proposals, 3 of them were considered for, to be reviewed by the selection committee, with interviews. After I think it was almost like a 2-month process of, after the interviews, going through the credentials, doing, reviews, and basically looking at this from every aspect, because the top 3 candidates were extremely qualified, and any one of them would have done a good job for the town of Raymond. We chose Pan Atlantic SMS, and Patrick Murphy, the president, couldn't be here tonight, and he's working on it with Marissa Dolan is their senior analyst, and the 2 of them have done a fantastic job. Attached to the e-packet is their contract for the amount of $13,550, and you'll see that there is a slight change from what they actually proposed, which was $12,300. And the reason why that was is because we amended their methodology. They were just going to do a strict paper survey sent to every house, taxpayer, and registered voters. So they'll do a cross-check and take out the duplications and send them to all those people. But we requested that they also include a web link for internet response for our individuals who are outside of town, or someone who used, we have a lot of people that use the internet for the town of Raymond to access a lot of our data, the meetings and stuff like that, and we thought that was important to keep that sort of medium up for response. So, after careful consideration, we're asking that the Board of Selectmen accept their contract.
And authorize the town manager to execute the contract.
Questions for Danielle or Dawn?
I missed the part where you said it's gonna be on the web,
Yes.
mailed also?
Mailed to every single taxpayer, resident, so every
When the
one
tax
address.
bills go out, or when?
No, we're looking as soon, after we get to the next portion, which will be to actually review the content of the survey, if everything goes well with that, we'll be looking to send out as of October 27th.
When did the tax bills go out?
They already went out
just
at the
went
beginning, at the beginning.
They're due next week.
Yeah, I griped about our taxes to know.
You don't remember? Sam?
Am I correct that you're sending only 1 to each
Yes,
household?
yes.
Why is that? When they're a 2-member household?
It's just the demographic, the way that the contractor has suggested that we do it, so.
We have, you could say 2, you could say 3, you could say anybody who's living there. I think it's just a typical, usual process that they follow to do 1 per household, but.
It's not a usual process.
Well, I think
It was the way the contract proposed, if you go, larger and execute more surveys, we're looking, then we'll have to adjust the cost to get that as well, but this is what they proposed and was accepted, so.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
So your experience is that it would be as many people that are in the household?
Well, they can go both ways.
Okay.
But I've always liked them better if they went to
That was
individual people rather than
one of the
households.
proposals did have that, but it said this is the one that was chosen.
Are you saying you and your wife are gonna have different opinions?
We always do.
Yep.
So, can you tell me again what the cost was?
$13,550 is the amended cost. We didn't select, obviously, solely based on cost, but this was significant, even with the amended amount, significantly lower than the next competitive proposal. But it truly was, as Danielle indicated, a difficult decision. All the firms that were interviewed were highly capable, highly experienced, do this sort of work on a regular basis. I think what tipped it for them was basically the methodology that they wished to employ and their strong interview. But it was not something that couldn't have been easily done by any of the firms, and it was really about the committee's preference on the methodology. It happened also to align with the lower proposal, which is good news.
How do you know you're not going to get a paper survey and also a web survey done by the same person?
Because I don't necessarily know that you wouldn't. I'm sure that they kind of try to take out some outliers.
And it's
I
gonna
know
be
that
limited by IP address?
every house is going to be limited by an IP address, so only one response per household. So, you know, I don't know that, you know, that you wouldn't have that happen, but I know that you won't have one person sitting in a house and overloading, you know, a survey, because it only limits one per household, so.
There's probably going to have to be some sort of correlation back to the number of households and number of responses, both electronic and mail, that we get. So, I mean, we'll have to. That's a great question.
Well, they
And
said
so-
I could implement a code, but it just, then what happens is then, once again, it goes kind of to costs, and we're amending it, because then every survey will have to have a unique identifier. So if that's something that you would like us to explore, I did email them about that tonight, and they said that we could do that, but they're recommending the single IP address per household.
What do they expect for a return?
They want a minimum of 320, but we're hoping for a lot higher.
Which would be,
What percentage is that?
that's like 8%?
That's a good percentage, actually.
So I said that's the minimum in order to get the confidence interval, but I'm hoping that with the adequate advertising and access to the survey that we'll have a much higher result.
To address Sam's point, I mean, you could always send one and say, if somebody else wants to do it, they can go to a computer and take the survey.
Yeah, I suppose.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Like I'll talk to them about that as well. You know, more response the better, because obviously we want to, you know, get the point. This is for the Raymond residents, the taxpayers and voters, to have a voice on some of these issues, you know, so obviously participation is welcome.
I'm sorry, Danielle, would you tell me again why you're expecting up to 8%? That's a high percentage.
No, we have to have a minimum of 320. So what happens is in order to have viable results, we have to have a minimum of 320 in order to meet the 5% confidence interval. If we don't meet that number, we have to go to the next step, which is calling households and then eliciting those responses.
Good.
Other questions from the board?
Yeah, question.
Yeah, I'll get there.
No.
Citizen questions, comments?
I'm Riley Turner. I used to be a partner in CKT Associate Public Participation Consultants when I lived in California. We didn't charge that much then. You certainly could do 2 people in a household. I strongly support each person is important. Don't make it harder by having to go to a computer to do it. It should be just automatic. That's just my suggestion.
I agree with that.
So that would be a suggested 2 surveys per envelope? Is that what, I'm just looking for suggestions.
Also, people can request them that, you know, so if anybody didn't get a survey because, you know, the deduping process might have taken out too many names, people are welcome to call and get one there, or, you know, if they're really adamant about taking one.
Off the website, maybe?
Yeah.
We have to be careful on access for overloading, though.
Yeah,
There's-
also
there are some
for
rules.
duplication as well, for people
Duplication, right.
taking out more than one survey, yeah. Anyway, we ought to,
So this part of the discussion is really about whether we should move forward with the contract, and then I think we're gonna have a further discussion, if that is a positive,
Content.
to talk about some
Yeah.
content and maybe get a little more into this, if we can. I will say that I sat on the selection committee, not the design committee of this. And we had proposals all over the board. And I can't remember the number that was approved, but we are well under the number approved for what we felt was a quality survey. And we did not feel the need to go to a higher number to get the quality. So it was about content. And then once we understood content, then we went to what does it cost, and it lined up in our choice that the one we liked best for content also happened to be.
I think the content is
So,
pretty close.
Danielle,
The allocated amount was 25,000.
thank you.
And what was the spread on the RFP?
For the top 3 was the 12, 3, then 16, I can't remember the exact number, 16, and then the last one was 20. So those were the top 3 that we had, and then I think there was someone else who bid like 50.
I was gonna say 40-something, wasn't it?
Yeah, so it said we had a range. I don't think anyone came in lower than this number. But what I will let you know that the process was, when we got the first 9, we sat and talked about them and went over them and then brought it down to our lowest 5. You know what I mean, our top 5 that we liked based on content, so threw out all the other ones that, you know, we knew off the bat weren't gonna work. And then opened the envelopes, and then the lowest 3, actually, yeah, the lowest 3 were chosen for interviews.
So content was done without knowledge of price.
Absolutely. You know, because we wanted to make sure that the best person was chosen for the job. This is a very important, you know, methodology.
Well, I'll make a motion, we proceed with the contract with Pan Atlantic.
I'll second
SMS.
that.
Further discussion? John?
So if we can accommodate the concerns over the number of surveys within the budget, we're good to go forward. If we can't, then what do we do? We're gonna try to get 2 surveys per household, is that correct?
We don't know that yet.
No,
We don't know that yet.
I mean, I would leave it up to Pan Atlantic.
Well, that's
They're the experts in this.
well, that's
thing.
what I was saying
If
at the
they
outset.
feel
but-
confident that they can get to 320 with a 95% confidence level, that's what they do.
And by changing the wording,
Yep.
you know, to say, you know, this entitles you to actually 2 per household.
Go to the website for the second one?
Yep.
Or they
Okay.
can request one, as I said, like, you know.
Okay, I just want to be clear on that, because every time you change the design, you change the money.
Right. Understood.
That's all.
Well, you have the number right now. You're at 13.2.
I know.
So, right,
13,550, right?
whatever it was.
Yeah, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I'm ready to sign on 13,550 and,
Yep.
yeah.
Further questions? Comments? All those in favor?
And there's 2 of those as well.
I know.
Thank you. So the next item is a committee was put together to actually create the survey. So Danielle, if you would take away that item B under new business.
So, there was a design committee formed with myself, Teresa Sadak, Sharon Dodson, Sue Look, and Lori Forbes. And it's been so long. And basically what we did is we sent notice out to the department heads, send us what your issues are, what are the topics that you need to know about, and then we took that list of items that we knew about, as well as a list of the department heads, and gave it to Pan Atlantic and said, create us a list of typical questions and issues, and then include some of ours. So what we got back was a very long, I think we started out at almost 10 pages, but the proposal is for 4, so we had to weed it down to that point. So what you're going to see is a survey design with 3 sorts of questions. The first are, well, in no particular order or mixed in there, are your baseline questions. And these are questions that, you know, you may have assumptions as to how they're answered. They're also questions that you can ask at a different point in time to gauge the public's interest and feelings on a particular issue. They're also worded in such a way that they're similar to the way other towns have worded them, so we can do apples to apples comparisons. Then the next set are our special interest questions. These are questions that we thought are, you know, either burning issues because of what department head said, or because of topics that we know are relevant to Raymond, that, you know, are worded in such a way to not necessarily give you black and white answers, but help to either guide a situation forward, or maybe some of them are kind of more black and white, like yes or no. Then the third set are your demographic issues. Like, these are questions that kind of, you know, help you to piece together who is kind of answering what sort of question and why, and kind of help you to get a better picture as to how Raymond is composed and how that may, you know, situate with how they're feeling. So, you know, this is, as said, not an easy task, you know, because essentially we were looking through the questions and trying to weed them down to the correct amount. So, you know, at this point, we're asking for, you know, what your feelings are on the content, if you felt that it represented the select board's intent. And then, if all goes well, once we get the final draft approved, we're looking to go out to print, to be mailed out on October 27th. So, you know, any questions? Sharon's here with us tonight too, and then you have Teresa. So, you know, and Sue, sorry. Yeah, so it said, we, you know, we hope that we represented your interests well.
So everybody had this four pages in their packet, and I'm hoping that you had a chance to read it and at least ask some questions of the committee members. And also, if there's other committee members that wanna, before we ask her questions, anything to say?
I do. I just want to say.
Really?
Yeah, I do.
No.
I've been quiet pretty much tonight after everything else. I give credit to these ladies because with how busy my schedule has been and not being able to leave the house, these guys met together, meetings, and unfortunately I came in the 11th hour. Felt like I kind of had a bomb and said, oh my God, I just blew apart a lot of what you guys were working on. But then we were emailing back and forth, and I'd ask questions that they had already figured out why, and they explained it. So they did a lot. They did a lot of work on this, so the credit really goes to them.
Anybody got any questions or comments about the survey? Joe?
I'm looking at your other questions.
The demographic ones? Oh.
No, the other, from 8 through
Right there.
Basically page 3.
8 through 11.
Yeah.
They kind of seem like they're a leading question to me, but I don't know.
Leading, like in what way? Because to me, the whole survey was to try to get where Raymond wants to be at, where we want to go with this.
Yep. And I can see people who have a special interest in some of these things, making sure they have all their friends fill out the survey a certain way. And that's just...
Do you think we should take those leading questions out and just leave it just like the other ones with the poor, the very poor, that type of thing then, so they can't?
Yeah, I'm not sure, because like I just would like some clarification, because I have between 8 and 11, we have a wide range of how, because we have some that are on a sliding scale, we have some that are essay, we have some that are, you know, range, so like what particular ones were you thinking were leading?
To me, all of them are. In the way they're worded, I just think you could have a lot of special interest people voting a certain way, and then all of a sudden you're going to say, oh, look what the survey says. You know, all these people, you know, for example, want to give more money to the library. Now, who doesn't want to give more money to the library? You know, it's...
But then, well, you know, that was one of the questions that we discussions that we had. Nothing says that we ever have to actually do anything, but if the library comes forward and says, I would like some money, and then you say, well, there's no support for that. Like, there hasn't been an outcry, but now you have a survey and some data that...
Who's going to say no to giving the library more money?
But they may say...
And I'm just using it as an example. I'm not picking on the library.
Right.
But, I mean, who's going to say no to expanding conservation efforts?
But then if you go to the question 11, what level of increase are you looking to support? And they only say 1%, then obviously the library might only get $100.
My concern is the library comes in front of the budget committee and says, we got 96% support that people want to give us more money. And
Should give us some money.
yeah. You know,
That's good.
I mean, that's why I don't know how you gauge the fact that all these things are good things, but
I don't know. I know it's just just because, you know, it puts the town in a tough place doesn't mean that we shouldn't ask the question.
people will use the survey results improperly.
To their best advantage.
Yeah.
To their advantage, yes.
Well, like 9A and B, when you're doing that, I think they should come off as far as the school goes, only because there's not anything that can be really done whether they're satisfied or not satisfied. And I think that answer's gonna come November, as far as the vote goes. Do you know what I mean?
Did have some people who, because we had to then redistribute this to staff, who are also, some of them are Raymond residents, and they said that they wanted to weigh in on either way because they wanted to be able to talk about things that they were doing well. Because even if we don't go through with the withdrawal, then the school board needs to know why people are dissatisfied. So that's the only reason why that people were interested in explaining themselves either way. Because like you get on 9B, you get to then explain your answer.
Just for clarification on something else too, because this came up with the group where we wanted to drop, I think, poor. Because no matter what, if you're under average, we're like, why do we have to have poor and fair? And they said that they had to have that, I think, in there is what it was, right?
Yeah, it's a 5
You have to have
points.
equal
You have to-
numbers on each side.
You gotta have an odd number. I'll throw out a couple things. At the very beginning, on the first line, it says, at the end, it says, in order to improve services, facilities, and quality of life. And it jumped out at me because I don't think a survey is intended to improve services, personally. And I guess I'm looking to maybe Pan-Atlantic for a more generic, why are we doing the survey?
Well, they suggested that wording, that was theirs.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think that's kind of leading wording to me, in a way.
Where are you?
Yeah.
Page 1,
Right,
very
the
top.
header.
The header.
The town of Raymond.
I would say to gauge citizen opinion on a variety of issues related to the town's operations.
Yeah,
something like that. I mean,
personally, I would see it, and when I read improved services, it said raise your taxes. That's what it said to me, and so that is a negative gut feeling right out of the box when you read line number 1 to take this survey.
And it also implies you're not doing a good job now. Yeah.
So would you like related to town operations, or is that the wording that?
I would stop where it says a variety of town issues.
Okay.
You want to gather your opinions on it, right? I mean, that's what it is.
Opinions.
And you want something added in that if they want an additional survey, they can
Right.
contact.
Second survey can be done electronically, and how to do that.
Yeah. Is there a cover letter that goes with this, Danielle?
I believe I think it's just this. It will be on, have town.
The idea is you want to make this, to the degree possible, as simple, painless as you can. You know, you want to limit the attachments, I think.
Right.
I wasn't part of the group, but I think that's part of what's happening here.
Well, I think then the up to 2 surveys per household, 1 paper, one internet.
Okay.
I think you would add that there, but I think it kind of goes back to Joe's point about not leading them.
Yep, absolutely.
So I had that as a point. On page 2, under communications, number 6 says, how often would you use the following communication tools to access the town news, blah, 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 excuse me. I read that, and I expected the questions to be stuff that didn't already exist.
Right.
Okay, as if you were asking the question, what else would you like? And that was kind of further confirmed in my mind when I went to 7, where it said, how would you rate? So I think you rate the current ones, and you ask, would you use ones we don't do? I mean, it's just observation here in terms of, I would use the website, I already do. It's a.
Right.
So,
yeah, we went back and forth on that one because we were trying to find out what other, are we basing all of our media sources on the correct one? Are there some that we're not touching upon? And then, so I guess would probably isn't the right word. That was the word that they suggested, rather than, because they were trying to, you know, I guess hypothetically say,
They need a better explanation.
yeah, exactly.
Or a better, I mean, if you don't understand the question, you can't answer it.
Right.
So, again, that was what I had for 6 and 7, was a slight confusion there, and I know it's hard because you guys read them and read them and read them, and I tried to just react to them, and that's where my comments are based. Under other, on the ABCs, providing options for high-speed internet services. I don't understand.
I did the same thing. I'm like, maybe you're
Do I have,
it's
do I
about
have slow speed at my house?
You do,
Yes.
you do.
There is
That was
a
the
higher
question. That
option
was
of
very well.
expanding the infrastructure. So, and I have run this question by so many people, and as we know, there's
ask
a
her
split.
husband, you get a different
Ask
answer.
your husband, you get a different answer. You ask some of our more,
If
you know,
you ask the revitalization
business-
committee,
Yeah.
or other people who are in business, they would tell you that this is perhaps one of the most important questions for
Yeah.
business and development of the community. And we do have slow internet.
Yeah.
So then you need to explain that.
Well, remember, Google comes in and they'll set up a whole high-speed internet thing
But-
for a town.
But the whole, you know, I don't know.
What do you mean, like to say like expanding infrastructure to include high-speed internet?
Something that tells people that the fact that they can watch Netflix streaming is not high speed. Because if that's all they care about, that's the highest speed they need, right?
Right.
I'm sitting there thinking, well, I got fast service now. What's the difference?
Yeah, no.
Well, we need to
I
make
said
that,
people
I
in
think
the
what we need to do
know
there is,
know,
we need to use some language that,
It's, you understand this, as a household, that's okay, as a household, for myself, I remember 10 years ago when I had to wait.
Dial up.
I don't have to wait anymore, so to me, that's high speed, right?
Yeah.
If you have to wait 30 seconds for it to download.
Okay?
Like,
So,
yeah.
so,
somehow we need to convey the notion that there's something greater than what we have now out there and available and would promote and enhance business and so forth, and personal use. So I mean, I don't know how we word that, but I agree with you. It's not clear now that you point that to me.
and I understand that every person in this room could take one of the questions and do what I just did with it.
Right.
Because of whatever knowledge you have. But that one did jump out at me, so.
You're not the only person on that.
I know, as I said, we went there are some of
And
these questions we
Teresa,
went
I think, on that
round.
one.
Yeah, we did.
So those
I
were,
get it.
I read through this twice, and those were my initial reactions to it, trying to think, how would I react if I just got this?
Right.
Other comments from the board?
My concern is just keeping it short, just because you want to keep people's attentions, because they're going to look and go, oh my God, how many of these things do we have to answer? And the more you have it, the less I think that they're going to answer the whole thing, or they're just going to throw it away.
Yeah, we're at the max right now.
You're at the max, but the way it's designed, actually, it maintains your
The
interest.
flow was
It is.
easy,
It's
I thought.
very good flow.
So are we good to go with this format with the changes?
Well, what do you want to do about your concerns with those questions?
With me?
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to do anything about them, right?
No, I was going to say, are you happy?
But it's a choice, right? I mean, if you bring the comments back to the professionals and say, this is a concern, we don't want to be leading, and under other, it
Right.
seems leading,
That we're gonna turn, that, you know,
and they may come back to you and say, if you want answers to specific questions, you can't leave it open,
right.
because then you're gonna get the same thing, right? The folks who really want X are gonna call all their friends, say, put X down.
I think on some of them, you know, you are gonna have some social good type things like the library, which may be skewed in a you know, positive way for sure, but I think there are some on there, I don't know, I don't wanna prejudice the survey, but there are some public improvement projects on there. I don't think people are gonna jump up and down and say, yeah, I want that, you know? I really don't think so.
You know, as with any survey, it's a snapshot in
Right.
time at that moment.
That's right.
Right, exactly.
Have you
yeah,
did it
what
another
drives
year?
me crazy is when people stand up and go, "Oh, we did a comprehensive plan back in 1998, and this
Right.
is what it says."
Right.
Well, that was for
But
1998.
you are gonna get some of that, but you're also going to perhaps get some answers that may surprise you the other way too.
Yeah.
I think you might.
You might.
The town of Saco, I believe, does this every 5 years, and then they have some baseline questions that they do every 2.
Yeah.
So, you know, they said this is just the beginning, and this is like an awesome, you know, exercise.
Believe me, I think we needed to do this for a long time.
Right.
And I'm gonna be anxious to see the results. Especially when it comes to voting on the select board and how people feel about us.
I'm waiting on the town manager's office, and I know Nate is the public works, everybody's curious,
Right.
yeah, and
Yeah.
public safety. You got it.
So,
You have to go up there and introduce yourself, please, because I know you want to say something.
Sharon Dodson, Ledge Hill Road.
Sharon was a member of the committee.
Yes. So, are we doing the leading questions or not? That's what I want.
Well,
We're going to
we
express.
just want you to express our concerns
Yeah.
to Pan Atlantic.
Well, yeah, we've beaten this around a lot. And the question is, if we want these, you know, we get the feeling that citizens want their opinions known, and this is an opportunity to get those opinions known. But you're right.
But you know, you get the point there, when you want this, this, and that, and everybody says, let's say they do want all these things. And then you go down and you say, what's your tolerance for paying for them?
Right.
And that's where the rubber meets the road. And so, as Danielle pointed out, I mean, if you get affirmatives on all these things, and then somebody says, well, I don't want a tax increase. So now you have conflicting data, right?
And then in the last part, we get to find out who answered the questionnaire.
Yeah.
I mean, that'll guide some of what Pan Atlantic has to say about what the survey really says.
Right. When you look at the demographics and the
Right.
analysis, you know, there may be different groups who feel a different way about different items, right?
Right.
And you'll have all of that ability to have that information too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think we're saying take it out. I'm now putting words in Joe's mouth. I think it's a
Do that
question.
all the time, Mike.
I do, don't I? So Joe, do you want to take it out?
No.
But you just want
Joe
us
wants
to
to reword it.
analyze
Yeah.
the
Take a
the
look
way
at
it's
it.
like worded.
Just say,
Is this the best
is
we
this
can
the
do?
best we can do?
Yep.
Yep.
Absolutely.
All right.
All right, so are we thinking of taking out 9A?
Yeah. Like,
The school thing?
yeah.
I wouldn't leave it in there.
I would leave it in too.
I think on a survey that doesn't have money involved,
That's right.
You find out the true opinions.
no, you're going to get a different opinion than the survey with money involved.
Exactly.
And I think an opportunity for them to write after that is fabulous.
Okay.
To actually,
Just so you know, there's only 2 lines here, but they're allowing for pages.
Yeah,
so
correct.
if anybody
You can send
wants
the
to
letter
write
in.
longer,
But
and the web browser expands, so if you want to write,
Well, I think if there are people who want to withdraw, the question was posed tonight, well, you know, what are your reasons? So there's an opportunity for that. If you feel strongly the other way, then there's a opportunity
Yes.
to explain that.
Exactly.
I think it's valuable data.
as I said, if the town doesn't go through with the withdrawal, now you have bullet points to say, well, this is what is and isn't working.
So you want a motion on this?
and I
Yeah.
think the motion needs to include,
Review.
no, not by us.
No, let it go.
No, by the,
No, I think when the committee's comfortable, that's what part of the motion. When the committee's comfortable, it goes.
yeah.
Look at Sharon. You're like, I'm lost.
I mean, I was never the communication thing, and it got, we took it from 2 pages down to these basically 2 paragraphs for space. And, unless you spend 2 pages to write it, everything's not gonna be answered.
Understood.
Yeah,
Understood. Yes, Joe, I think we need a motion.
I'll make a motion to move ahead with the survey as worded with any changes for our concerns that were brought up tonight.
Second.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? 4-0. So,
Okay,
Teresa has to leave.
I apologize.
Is there anything you want to do right before you leave? Do you want to add a selectman comment?
Nope.
Teresa, you have a good evening.
You made all your comments tonight, didn't you?
Yeah, I'm gonna leave on that note, and I apologize for leaving early. We have a scheduling issue. Sorry, and there's those. Thank you.
Good night, Teresa.
Next item on the agenda is our town clerk, Sue Look, with some of the procedural stuff that needs to be done for the election, and then I asked her to do an overview of absentee ballot process for those at home to make sure they understood that how to get an absentee ballot. Sue, it's all you.
Before you should have a list of ballot clerks. That's the full list, not the ones that necessarily will be working the election, so that it's up for your consideration and approval, so that I can pick and choose, and hopefully you do choose them, because I've already scheduled a whole bunch of them. One thing that's been thrilling is to see how many volunteers there are in Raymond for this, or not volunteers, they do get a bit of
A stipend.
And get the opportunity of having some good eats from Good Life, which is nice. I'll put in a plug for them, since they treat us very well with that, I understand. But to see this many people willing to come out and put in the time is just really exciting to me. It's really fun. So you've got that. You also have a sheet to appoint the warden/moderator. And that needs to change, because I am out of practice with 30A, which is the title that governs town meetings, and had forgotten that a non-resident cannot be a moderator, and I'm not a resident of Raymond. So I can be the warden for the election, but I can't be the moderator. So I'll need to find a moderator for the town election.
Don't we usually have Nathan?
I was gonna say Nathan White is usually.
Well, he needs to hang
Laura?
with me for the entire day, yeah,
Oh, Lori Forbes was.
yeah.
Is she willing to do it?
Given her current family circumstances, she doesn't feel comfortable in making that commitment right now unless I'm up against it. And she has enough stress, I didn't want to put her up against it. I have had someone tentatively say that he would be willing to hang with me for the entire day if I could find no one else. Yeah. So, but I'm also going to see if there's any way that I can, under the law, have a moderator and then deputies take over at 4-hour intervals or something.
Not because I wouldn't want to spend the day with you, but I just think that it would be better if it weren't the town manager, but if you needed me to do it, I would do it.
Sue, the issue here is we don't meet again, so we need to have a name tonight.
No, the moderator doesn't have to be appointed by the selectmen. That's somebody who's actually voted in the first 2 minutes of the election, so.
Okay, good. Okay, good.
Yeah, it's the same as a town meeting, and it's all because we're combining two parts of the law and two processes into one event. So we've got the Title 21A gubernatorial election and referendum election, and we also have the special town meeting for the RSU question.
Yeah, thank you.
Still have Eileen Stiles on this list? Didn't Eileen and Howard move?
They did.
Yep, so.
Yeah, Louise has helped me to weed out that, and that was after I submitted the list to you for your consideration.
So can we cross that off, please?
Yes, you can.
And I'd also ask the board, I think we should cross off Teresa while she's elected.
She still can qualify, even if she's a selectman.
Yeah, she's still a resident of the town of Raymond, and unless her name is on the ballot, she can. There's no conflict of interest to be a part of an election. The only could be if you don't feel comfortable with it. But by the law, there's nothing that says she can't work an election, if she so chooses.
I'm asking I'm suggesting to the board that I do not feel comfortable with it. I don't know how the other two members feel. it did throw up a red flag when I saw it, even if it was allowed. I did not think it was an oversight.
Mhm.
Anybody else have
Whatever
an
you wanna
opinion?
do.
It's up to you, yeah,
I don't think Teresa's gonna care one way or the other.
Yeah, I would like to then take both Eileen and Teresa off there.
I'll make a motion to accept the ballot clerks as presented,
With changes.
as amended.
I'll second that.
Further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? We have so the election warden, we need a motion for that one, Sue?
Yes,
And that's you?
yes.
Make that motion.
Yeah, second.
Been moved and seconded. Further discussion? All those in favor? 3-0. And then Sue, you will find a new
Moderator, yes.
moderator.
Mhm.
And we have a town meeting warrant.
Yes.
I don't know, how do you want the motion on it, just the warrant?
Basically to approve.
Make a
Warrant as
motion
presented.
to approve the town meeting warrant for November 4th, 2014.
I'll second that.
Any further discussion? All those in favor? Unanimous?
Is John Cooper still a resident of Raymond? He is?
He is. John Jack Cooper enjoys still
I
performing
thought he
that
was down
service.
in Florida.
He is part-time.
That's it?
Next order of business, Sue, could you give a quick overview on how folks can get an absentee ballot if they so wish?
That I can do. One of the easiest ways is to go online to www.maine.gov and do a search for absentee. I'm not sure why they haven't put it right on the front page like they normally do, but there's a search box right at the top, and that will take you to an online ballot request service. And as soon as someone hits submit, I get that request in the town office and I'll mail the ballot out.
There is a link on the front page of our website on the
Yes.
left-hand column.
And we do have, as Danielle said, a link on our website.
So either maine.gov or raymondmaine.org.
Yes. And it's also on our absentee page. I've added that to under the town clerk. The next way is to come in the town office, and that's probably the easiest if someone wants to vote a ballot now. They can come in, request that they vote in person. We have the voting booth set up.
Thank you for coming.
And they can vote right there in the town office, and their ballot is instantly approved and set aside to be cast. Or they can come in and request a ballot for themselves or an immediate family member and take that home, vote it, and either mail it back or bring it back in.
Thank you, Sue. Next item on the agenda is public comments, or anybody in the public that would like to speak, step right up.
My name is Bonnie Titcomb-Lewis, and I am a resident of Raymond. I'm a taxpayer here. I'm a former teacher, so I have a great deal of support for the quality of education. And I'm speaking about going forward and speaking up for the process that I felt was diminished a little bit tonight. And I just want to make note of the fact that, and I know you guys all know that democracy is pretty messy sometimes. They say it's kind of like sausages. But the referendum process is the most down-to-earth, grassroots part of the democratic process. And wherever people come out on this RSU issue, I think it's very important that we never lose sight of the fact that that process happened. For whatever reason people signed the petition, they did. It was a referendum, and it was appropriate that it be put forward, whatever your opinion is. And I just felt tonight that some of the comments from the attendees were a little harsh in regard to why that happened. So I'm just speaking up for democracy in its fullest extent, and I think that the referendum is a very significant part of that. So I thought you did a good job tonight.
Thank you, Bonnie.
Thank you.
And thank you for expressing that. Any other members of the public? Selectmen, anything you want to add this evening? I have a quick update for my monthly library information. The library received a $750 grant from the Libra Foundation for children's books, so yahoo for them. And their annual board meeting is actually tomorrow night, October 15th at 6 p.m. At the library, and all are welcome to attend. They will be electing new officers for the coming year. They're looking for new volunteers, input. Just because you show up, they said they won't try to make you a board member, but they'd love to hear your ideas or at least tell you a little more about the library. And they said that refreshments will be served. And the last item from the library is the annual Candy Appeal. As many of you know, downtown Raymond, which would be the Main Street area and around the library, is where most of our kids gather, and those houses get a lot of kids. And so each year the Raymond Library is kind of a depository for candy that they then pass out to the neighborhood to help the individual houses with the amount of kids they get from all over the community. So if you could pick up a couple of extra bags of candy if you're so willing, or if there's something you want to pick up that's not candy but is a Halloween treat, excellent. They expect over 400 kids to come through each person's door in the course of a couple of hours. So that's what I have from the library this evening. Town manager report, Don?
First off, confirm the date for the next regular meeting, November 18th, if that works for you all.
And we're going to the third Tuesday because why, Don?
Because we have a holiday, correct?
Referendum's on November 4th, holiday on the 11th, so.
Right, well, we typically wouldn't have it on the 4th anyway. That would be the first Tuesday. So
So for
we'll see.
November, we're going to go to the third Tuesday, which is the 18th.
That's what we're
Folks okay with
proposing,
that?
yes. Yep.
Okay. Anything else, Don?
Oh, yes, Innovative Readiness Training IRT program update. And so, starting in April 2015 construction season, the IRT will be working on the following projects: the Public Safety Tower Site, constructing the access road, a capital improvement, installing the underground utilities, construction of tower and building foundation, erection of tower and placement of control building. Also, the Oakledge Hill Fire Pond Maintenance Project. This is removal of the existing fence and vegetation, dredging of the fire pond, installation of a new fence and relocated pumping and fixtures, construction of access drive. Finally, the Public Safety Site Distance Project, Maintenance Project. That actually will start sooner with a private contractor taking down some of the larger trees which were too much for the military to handle. That may be starting 1st of November. But the military part next spring will be removal of the debris and brush left from the tree cutting project, installing the underground power, reconstruction of the retention pond. Plans for the fire pond and site distance project have been finalized. The tower site project will be going before the planning board tomorrow evening at 7 o'clock for a public hearing and formal review. There's going to be a kickoff meeting with the military personnel at Camp Hines on October 28th and 29th, which Danielle and I will attend. Project review and organization. Danielle is currently working on the 2014 application, which is for the 2016 construction season, as required for the project to continue, to add to what we're doing and continue. But for 15, those are the projects, 3 basic projects going forward.
And Don, those projects are being paid for based on the combination voting at town meeting?
Yes, and military expenditure with the, labor component, equipment component, and the site work type of components.
Excellent.
So that's all good news, and we actually had recently an expression of interest from the folks at the school. They may have some work, so we're going to, Danielle is going to help the school people walk through the process, introduce them, because they have to be their own applicant. We can't be an applicant on property we don't own, so Danielle will get them in touch with Captain Trueblood to me, Karen to Danielle, so So hopefully that'll work out for them as well as it did for us, right, Danielle? 10-4. Danielle has a special.
She walks in.
Yeah, she has a special relationship with the captain, so that's good news. She runs the program out of the Pentagon, so great job, Danielle.
You're here. It's fabulous to hear some of those
Yeah.
actually starting for us.
I think the other thing that's kind of cool and interesting is that the Boy Scout facility is now under contract, I believe, in South Portland, and they're moving their headquarters, their administrative offices to Raymond.
Oh, they are. The building that's by the turnpike is being sold.
Being
Turnpike
sold.
entrance.
It was.
The one down by the airport?
Yep.
Wow.
Wasn't that named after Mr.
Chincat.
Yeah. Too much financially for them, and so that's what they've decided. They're selling that building and moving. Taxes.
Taxes are due? Are they?
Oh, yes.
Oh, Don, you get to pass on that message. You want me
Yes.
to?
Go ahead. You go ahead.
Just a reminder, the first half of the tax bills are due by Halloween this year. So please help us by paying your taxes. Speaking on funds, Joe, would you mind doing the warrants?
Nope. Make a motion, our treasurer's warrant in the amount of $1,275,647.44.
Not this stuff. It's mostly you.
It includes bond payments of $541,045.81 and the county tax of $617,503.
Second?
All those in favor? Unanimous?
Make a motion to approve the payroll warrant for $47,913.36.
Second?
All those in favor? Unanimous?
And I think that's it. Make a motion to adjourn.
Second?
All those in favor? Thank you all.